Amos had some really good remarks in terms of some demographics about private lands, and that's it. And what Herbie and Maggie wanted to try to do is, and they asked me to try to focus more on private lands and really look at it from the standpoint of Mississippi. But let's kind of go back in time. I'm not going to do as good as what Granville did with his chronology yesterday, but if you go back kind of to what Amos was talking about earlier in the late 1800s and the early 1900s, that's really when Roosevelt and George Bird Grinnell and Gifford Pinchot really saw a need of what we were abusing our lands and harvesting the bison and really destroying the resources that were in the New World, if you will. And so them and several other people in New York really started the conservation movement. And that's how we have what we have today. So a lot of that early emphasis was really creating a system of Park Service, of Forest Service, National Wildlife Refuge System, etc., that which we see today. And Mississippi's had a huge impact in that throughout time. And if you look at the Timberland Reserve Bill, Mississippians were very much the pusher of that early on. Has anybody ever been to Yellowstone?
Yeah.
You ever been to Lamar Valley?
Yeah.
Who's that named after?
Lamar.
Excellent choice. Named for Senator Lucius Quintius Cincinnatus Lamar of Mississippi. Senator Cochran of Mississippi sits in his same U.S. Senate seat on the Senate floor. He was the one that sent the Department of Defense to Yellowstone to protect it. He's also the one that really developed the Timberland Reserve Bill and pushed it through Congress. And he's one of only 4 members, 4 Americans that have ever been a member of the U.S. Senate, U.S. House, a member of the U.S. Supreme Court, and a member of the Cabinet. He was Secretary of the Interior. So it's a pretty amazing gentleman. So we moved on and past more of that early land acquisition phase. In the 30s and 40s, we really saw an emphasis on states. And that's when you saw your Pittman-Robertson and Dingell-Johnson Acts come forth and really funding state agencies. They got them moving. And then as you continued through in time and as we got into the late 60s and the early 70s, you see what's the predecessor of what we have today is a lot of the environmental legislation. Clean Air Act, Clean Water Act, Endangered Species Act, or whatnot. Back with Rachel Carson and Silent Spring, a lot of that stuff that led up to that. So if you continue on through time in the mid-'80s and in the early '90s, Granville talks a little bit about the Conservation Easement Act. And that time period was really the very beginning of we in this country started putting an emphasis on what Amos pointed out was 70% of the land mass here in the United States, and that's private ownership. If you looked at endangered species in his slide, 80% on private lands. If you look at wetlands, what DU does a great job of around the country in North America, private lands. So that's really where we are today. And a lot of that stuff in terms of in the last several years of how we've developed policy and moved it forward originates in this very room. And that's not an understatement. For those of you that know that, that are participants in that, you certainly know that.